Self-Publishing Podcast, episode number 121.
This episode of the Self-Publishing Podcast is brought to you by 99 Designs, the online marketplace that helps you get outstanding book cover designs at an affordable price. Start your custom design today at 99designs.com/SPP. Enjoy a free power pack upgrade valued at $99.
Welcome to the Self-Publishing Podcast, where if you want something done right, you've got to do it yourself. And now, here are your hosts, three guys who sometimes shower together. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Johnny, Sean, and Dave.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Self-Publishing Podcast, the podcast that's all about how to get your words out into the world without contending with agents, publishers, or the other gatekeepers in traditional publishing. I'm Johnny B. Truant, and my co-hosts are Sean Platt and David Wright, who on his business card will be David Wright. He sent me those. I was like, ooh, his email address is david@sterlingandstone.net.
That was a special request, actually. He was set up at dave@sterlingandstone.net, and he said, no, I am Dave professionally.
David.
Right, he can't even get it right in the anecdote.
You guys know this. It's James and Jimmy. It's the same thing.
You guys call me Dave.
It's forever. You're Dave forever. I don't care.
Yeah, but if my books all say Dave Wright. Dave Wright is not a horror writer. Dave Wright is like, hey Dave, how's it going?
No,
Dave
you're right.
Is this guy right here, but the writer is David Wright.
No, you're totally right, and I think it's awesome that you made the special request.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
We did decide on, I almost feel like I should save this, but I won't since I've begun it. We did decide on the Sterling and Stone logo, which is going to, like everything we do, polarize, where some people are going to think it's awesome and other people are going to think, what the fuck is wrong with you?
That's part of the thing I just sent you, Johnny, but thanks for talking about it now.
Okay, well, I won't talk any more about that. It was the business card thing. Do you remember when we had, why can't I remember his name? The voiceover guy? David Lawrence.
David Lawrence.
Of course, he was Dave. And,
The puppet master.
Yes, the puppet master. He talked about the radio host who was, I don't remember what the guy's name, but it was something like Lawrence, and if you called him Larry, he'd yell at you. Do you remember that? The discussion we just
Lawrence
had.
King.
Was that what it was?
No. It could be. I don't know. He didn't say it.
I've been writing the Fiction Unboxed book this week, and man, has that been fun. That's been really, really fun, writing the narrative of Fiction Unboxed. We originally, just so people can understand the art and process of it, I suppose. Do you think anybody cares about this?
I do. I think it's really interesting. Because
it
really...
No, I do.
Well, I'm not going to bother asking you, Dave.
Well, no, Dave's already half tuned out anyway.
You know what Dave is? He's anti-Mikey. Like, if they were to take a person and split him in half into... Like, he's the anti... Mikey was one half and Dave's the other. Don't give it to Dave. He hates everything.
Writing's not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be torturous.
Yeah, well, this is nonfiction, too. But, because originally... Well,
I'll tell the story. So, the way that we originally conceptualized Fiction Unboxed is we were going to transcribe things anyway. Like, we were going to have... Well, we weren't. Jacob was. Or whoever at Caption Access. CaptionAccess.com. And they were going to transcribe it for us anyway, just for accessibility reasons, for, I don't know if it's for SEO, whatever. And we said one of the Kickstarter rewards would be that we said, well, we'll give you those transcripts in a book format. And then we were going to make a print book of that. And then we kind of left that as Fiction Unboxed, the book. And we then we started calling it transcripts because it was confusing. Like, we're going to write, because we didn't have a name for the Dream Engine. We're going to write the book we're going to write during Fiction Unboxed. And
that was the hardest copy to write. Oh my God.
And then we'll give you the Fiction Unboxed book too, and those are different somehow. So we just started using the word transcripts, but they weren't really going to be transcripts. They were going to be like enhanced transcripts. And once Sean and I started to play with that idea when it came up on the calendars, it's like, that's the worst fucking book ever. Like, who would want to? It's hard enough to listen to us ramble, and we're gonna take that and transcribe it. We'd have to trim the shit out of them.
We're gonna subject you to 200,000 words of our rambling.
I think I mentioned this really early on, by the way, but that's all right.
Well, we ignore everything you say
But
until
yeah,
somebody else says it.
well, no, it's not that. It's like you're our CJ Lyons. You know how you don't hear us until CJ
Oh.
comes on and agrees with us, right? It's the same thing. That goes both ways. It's like when Ethan and Haley are fighting over something, and Haley just finally loses it at Ethan, and he did something tiny, and it has nothing to do with that tiny thing. It's all the annoying things he's been doing for 3 weeks before that. It's the same thing. If you hate everything, right? There's no black and white.
I hate you all.
So what we decided to start doing is we said, well, we'll have to make them like transcripts plus, and we'll break up the transcripts with explanation. But I downloaded them to listen to this. It's 24 hours. It is literally iTunes said 1 day when I highlighted all of it. 1 day from 5 a.m. one day to 5 a.m. the next day without stopping. That's the Fiction Unboxed. So it's like it would be this huge amount of material. But it's not just that it's huge, it's that it's like we went off on tangents and we're talking about, so whatever, it would be terrible. So we thought we'll do a little bit of story, and then we'll interject like turning to the camera sort of moments, and we'll peek in and say, okay, well here's what we did, and then here's a section from the transcript. But even then it didn't make sense at all. So we shifted more and more toward we'll tell the story, and less toward we'll actually include the transcripts. And what we ended up with was we're just going to write a book about the experience, but it couldn't just be us stroking ourselves like, hey, look at us writing a book. It had to be something that was instructive. It had to have lessons. And so I've been writing that, and it's narrative, and we sort of tell the story of how the idea came about, what lessons writers would learn from it, and it's going to be a really cool book. It's going to be like a true legitimate. Oh, and it's going to include the productivity stuff that we didn't include in Write, Publish, Repeat. That people asking us for that is what led us to Unboxed in the first place. So we're going to include that section too. So it's like a legitimate sequel, but
yeah, it really feels
really
like
cool.
it really feels like a sequel. And as Johnny was saying earlier in the week, at first, he didn't quite get what I meant when I said, well, I think we just need a story here, and we need to follow story structure. It's a hero's journey, but with lessons. And he's like, what? But then, actually getting into the meat of it, I think I think it's a really cool book, because it is the story, and by this time you guys all know this story. But it really does have those moments where each chapter, it has a little bit of story, but it also has specific takeaways. Like, this is what you should have learned from this, and here's something that you can go do right now to become a better writer. And
but Sean hasn't seen it, and all of the narrative stuff, all the text is chock full of lessons too. It's not just like we said, okay, well here's the story, and then here's the lesson. It's you read through this and you're like, I don't know. It's like the story equivalent of going through Fiction Unboxed for $5 or $6 or whatever, which is going to be cool.
Yeah, and it's the kind of book that I would really want to read, which, like that's our aim. When anything we write, we want to write something that we would want to read as a consumer, as a fan. And it's really cool to be able to put out nonfiction like that too. That nonfiction can be so dry, and it's really cool to write nonfiction that reads like fiction.
So there you go. That's really cool.
Is there a lot of cursing in it or no?
No, actually, I tried to not include anything like that. Not by omission, but just because I don't know. Like until I saw a need. It's like with
right. It doesn't
explaining
need
a story thing.
Right. And
Right.
Unbox was like that too. There were the moments where we swore, but we were on pretty good behavior for the most part. If it wasn't a natural part of the conversation, there wasn't swearing.
Right, but then I got to the point where I described Sean pitching me on the idea of naming Write, Publish, Repeat the fiction formula, and I titled that chapter. I couldn't help myself. I titled that chapter "A Pair of Assholes," because it's Sean out to dinner with this self-professed asshole being an asshole right back to me, like, well, yeah, the fiction formula, like, what the hell's the matter with you? So I don't know. And then I did include some of Sean's story summary, and of course Sean can't write a story summary without saying motherfucker every word. So
I can too. I was actually, other than Rabbit Brampton on that, I think I was pretty clean, wasn't I? No.
No. No, I
That's
mean,
too
I think that it's the bar is set so low for you. You know what I mean? Like your definition of what is clean is a little skewed, maybe. Think how fucked up she would be. The fuck this, and she's all wants to get on Levi, and I don't know. It just so there you go. So that's
All right, I remember that.
That's what I'm working on right now. I don't know. You want to go into voicemails, or is there anything else we should do first? By the way, today's topic is going to be setting, which I think is going to be cool. I feel the need to mention that. I love how our brand is that we don't have to do anything right. Love it.
Dave hates that about us.
We should write a book how to not do a podcast.
I would like that. I'd have to read like a story though. Yeah, voicemails sound awesome.
By the way, since you mentioned how not to do a podcast, I just wanted to thank everybody who went and there were a bunch of new iTunes reviews, and so thank you everybody for who did that, who left good reviews because they like the podcast.
Now I gotta go look.
Yeah, well, actually, that's the thing I was going to tell you before we started, and I couldn't remember what it was. So Johnny had told me, "Oh, go look at the reviews. You'll be happy." There's a bunch of.
Oh, great! Is there something I haven't seen?
Yeah, so I go, and the first one it's no. Check this out. It's a 1-star, and it just came in, and it's based on last week's show, where the three hosts did nothing but talk about taint. And then
how's that a 1-star review?
It's a 5-star review.
And then Johnny, you're quoted, and it says one of the hosts said, "I wonder what it would be like if this was somebody's first episode." Well, this was my first episode. So
awesome.
There's that.
Actually, that was Dave who said that.
Yeah, they quoted wrong.
All right.
Okay, well, then please go leave more positive reviews. I love it when people show up, that's the first thing they say. Oh, sigh. Well, thank you for those of you who left 5-star reviews. I don't know. Maybe that guy's still around. Thanks for the 1-star, too, I guess, buddy. Hopefully you stuck around, Lady. Yeah, that was a good follow-up to that first episode. All right, so let's move into the voicemails then. So, can't believe they didn't like that we were talking about taint. Okay.
Who doesn't like taint?
It is a podcast.
I think we got to bring it into every episode from now on. Just to hammer it home until it's funny again.
All right.
Why don't we do today's Better Off Undead could be the taint show. It could be Runway or Taint. That's great SEO, actually.
All right. So here's our first voicemail.
Hi guys, this is Lavi Margolin. I'm a career coach and I've authored 6 books related to careers and websites like LinkedIn. Now that I have a growing catalog of books, I'm enrolled in KDP Select program, and I wanted to know, when I run my next 99-cent promotions, should I run them all at once in terms of using the power of having a catalog of 6, or should I space it out where I have one book run each week for 6 weeks and let momentum build there? My current book, Winning Answers to 500 Interview Questions, is far and away the bestseller for me. So should I focus on the main book and then roll out the others later, or to roll them all out at once? Thanks so much. Keep up the great work. I love the new book, and I'm always promoting what you do in my Authors Sharing Marketing Ideas Facebook group. Thanks.
I love that he got his book name in there.
Dave, people are allowed to mention their book names.
I know. It's just, I just wait for it. Like, sometimes it's super obvious, other times not.
You're totally fine, buddy. But there was one. Do you remember?
Yeah,
that
that's
one
about Dave, not you. Don't worry.
I have a LinkedIn rant I want to go on before you answer his question. I would just like to ask everyone that knows me through this show to please stop fucking sending me LinkedIn invites. I'm not on LinkedIn. I don't give a fuck about LinkedIn. Please stop. It's like
and
20
stay
a day.
tuned on sterlingandstone.net for a social media brief where we discuss the importance of being on LinkedIn for all of us.
I'm actually, as soon as we get off this podcast, I'm sending Dave an invite. I'm going to do it in between shows so he can rant about it.
I created a LinkedIn profile, and then I never used it because I'm not a professional sort of person, so I didn't give a shit. And I get them all the time too, and I just ignore them. So nothing personal. If you sent me one, I don't do anything with it.
But I feel like a jerk because like they might think I'm ignoring them. So sometimes I'll respond and say I'm not on LinkedIn. Thank you though, and nobody ever like responds back or anything. It's just a whole weird thing. Like I feel guilty like not going on there, but I'm not. I don't want to be on there. So I mean, if I have a reason to go on there, I'll go on there and then I'll accept all your invites. But not now. It just drives me. I get them like all the time. Now I'm gonna get like 100 more from the people that leave one.
Well, at least one. At least one after this show. All right. So to this guy's question, I wouldn't have 6 books. If you have 6 books in your catalog, why have them all in KDP at the same time? That means like literally all of your eggs are in Amazon's basket. Why not put one in, let it read out the 90 days, and then rotate through your catalog? You'd have almost a year to go through everything and make sure that your CTAs are really smart. So when you're using one, you can always leverage it to move the others. That seems to make more sense to me rather than I absolutely would not do what you first suggested, which was have them all 6 at once and then run a promotion all at once, because then it's over and like you have the exclusivity locked in and you just did it all at once.
Shut your wad all at once.
Yeah.
And you can't run. I don't think so anyway. On a lot of these, on a lot of the websites like BookBub and stuff, you can't run more than one book at once. You can't run your whole catalog on advertising all at once unless you're doing like little bits here and there, and that just seems like kind of pointless. I think some nonfiction authors can keep their. I have seen people just that are in Amazon that are keeping their eggs in one basket, and they kind of utilize it that way, where like they do one on promo, then they do another one the next month, and I've seen them kind of hover around the chart. So it really depends where you are and if you want your stuff in other stores. I can see benefit to both sides, though.
It depends what you want to get out of it.
Nonfiction is such a different beast from fiction, and people are actively looking for your answers. So I agree with Dave that it is a better home. Select is a better home for nonfiction than fiction. But I think just be careful, and I think throwing everything out there at once is a pretty big mistake.
There you go. All right, so the second voicemail is from Chris about funnels.
Hey, Johnny, my name is Chris, and I'm calling you from Thailand right now. I have a question about funnels for you, specifically about some of my nonfiction books. Basically, I've written a number of itineraries, 3-day itineraries to a city or 7-day itineraries to a region, and I'm trying to put some calls in action in the end of the book to see the best way to funnelize those, if you will. So the question is, how would you do a funnel where a 3-day product and a 7-day product are basically the same thing, or how would you set up a different kind of funnel that might work? Thanks.
I'm not sure I understand that question.
I don't understand that question. No, I don't understand the question at all. I think, there's too many things I don't understand.
It sounds like a vengeance versus namaste sort of thing. 3-day versus 7-day. Is that sort of...
maybe. Like, okay, let's assume that that's what it is. So you're going to Hawaii, and there's a 3-day itinerary and a 7-day itinerary. That's a hard question to answer because I there's too much I don't know. But it seems like that's 2 different buyers. A 3-day trip is a very different trip than a 7-day trip. And if you already went, it doesn't mean you're going to go again for a longer period of time. And if...
Right, it's not a logical upsell. You got
right.
the 3-day, now get the 7-day.
Yeah, and if it's a different place altogether, like you have a 3-day Alaska itinerary and you have a 3-day like New Mexico itinerary, the odds of a person wanting to travel in sequence to both of those places, I don't know enough about your product to help, but it seems like you would have a very difficult time. It would make much more sense, rather than trying to get them to buy a different kind of book, to identify with you. Like if you talk about travel and you have a travel blog, for example, you want to get them there because you're an intelligent person who talks, intelligently about traveling around the world, and that you want to do that rather than another specific title, because another specific title is simply too specific. You don't know where they want to travel next.
Right. That's actually what I was going to say. Is the idea of maybe getting them to sign up for a mailing list or something more general rather than another purchase of an itinerary. So there you go.
Right.
All right. That's it on voicemails, just the two. So we're gonna, I think, have a new voicemail thing maybe, but I don't want to get into that. But that'll be kind of neat. So.
If that works, it's gonna be amazeballs. I'm so excited about that page.
All right. Well, let's talk more about that in vague terms. So, do we have any? Do you want to move into the topical? Yeah. Do you want to? Well, let's do that. Let's unprecedentedly move into the topic rather than talking about taints.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the logo at all first?
No, not for another like 10 minutes on that.
John is so
All
smart.
right. All right. Well, Sean is the one who prompted me. All right. So no reason for that. All right. So go ahead, Sean.
Well, no, I actually I love this topic, and Dave always cracks me up whenever we come up with a topic. He's always like, "Well, I don't get how we're going to talk about that." And so setting, he said, I can't even think of any settings for books, but I could think of all of these for games and movies and TV shows. And that's the point. There's no difference. A setting those are all story things. The things that he likes about the settings in a game or a movie or a TV show, those are all things that help with the storytelling. It doesn't have to just be a book. A setting is a really powerful backdrop to where your characters are and how they interact with it. And I don't think we've ever talked about this before. And so I think it's a place where we can really talk about not only, specifically, we're talking about this because Threshold is coming out next week, and setting is really, it's essential to that story. But I think setting is something that you don't pay enough attention to sometimes as an author. And in fact, excuse me, today I was doing a keynote for, we're rebranding the whole Lexi line. And I was talking about setting in that, actually, and I realized how weak a lot of her setting is compared to, CI or Realm and Sands, where setting is a much bigger part of the story. She has a couple.
Example what you mean there.
Well,
maybe you were just about to.
Yeah, setting is really important in Future of Sex and adult video, but we did that. So that's in harmony. But a lot of her other stories, setting it could be anywhere. It just doesn't matter where it is. Setting is really not a part of the story. Where Threshold, for example, without that setting, the entire story changes. It's fundamentally different.
Let me rub my chin and go, well, why do we give a shit about the setting of some of those stories if it's just about the people?
Well, because it's how they interact with the setting. So it's
the setting informs the character. Like, if you look at somebody that lives in a third world nation, they have a completely different life than somebody in America, usually anyway.
Yeah, I think I would debate the idea that it's essential to always have a strong setting, if that's what.
No, not at all.
No. It's absolutely not essential, and in fact, sometimes it can be distracting. But I think it is another area where you can put more attention to it and make your setting almost a character in the story. And if you do that, it's just another layer of texture that makes your work that much more interesting to read.
Give me the Threshold example, if you can do it without spoilers, and why the setting is so important there. Threshold is out now or no?
Threshold comes out. Threshold is out now if you're a Sterling and Stoner. It comes out on the 26th. Otherwise, so Threshold, and this isn't a spoiler because this is pretty much established, within the first few chapters. But the way it's set up is it's basically a haunted house type of book, and there's this family, and the mom is missing. They don't know where she is, and she's presumed dead. They found her car, but no body, and they're about to lose their house. They're kind of destitute. And out of nowhere, this rich Uncle Alistair dies. And he's leaving them all kinds of money. And the condition for them to get the money and the house and everything else is that they have to stay in the house. Now, the reason that they have to stay in the house is more of a spoiler. So I won't go into that. But as far as the setting, they have to stay in this house. And if they leave the house, they break the covenant and they don't get the money. So it's a way of keeping them in the haunted house, because we really did want to keep them in the haunted house and not do this stupid thing where the house is haunted and no one leaves. Because we've all seen that movie, and that movie sucks, right? We have to give them a compelling reason to stay. It's basically they're waiting something out, and it may be uncomfortable, but it's a lot better than their alternative. And so by the nature of the haunted houses are all stories where setting is important, not just threshold, but any of them.
See, now, I like what you said about it. It could possibly be a distraction. You have to find the fine line where it isn't. So, for example, I'm thinking back to, like, The Walking Dead got some shit because after a couple seasons it was like, well, it's not even about zombies. There's no zombies in it. And the idea was that it was always supposed to be about the people and how they... And actually, I would say that this is a really, really strong, not a trope, but a thread that runs through Collective Inkwell work is you guys are always writing about people in dire situations. So it's and I heard Stephen King say this too. It was like he likes to take a night, a set of nice people and then throw something terrible at them to see how they react and adapt. And so I'm wondering, I guess I kind of lost the thread of where I was going to say there, but the idea was that The Walking Dead was always supposed to be about the people. Lost on the Island was always supposed to be about the people. So it's almost like the setting is this. It's almost like it's a hook in some cases.
Yeah, Lost is
interested.
Lost is a great example of setting. Absolutely. I don't think The Shining is another one. Like The Shining, the setting. Well, that's a haunted house story essentially, right? But The Shining is a very good example of setting. Lost is, but the island is core, right? The island is unbreaking. That's the constant. Then they go off the island in the flashbacks, and that's where you get a lot of the texture, and it makes the show more than it would be, because if that show just took place on the island, it would not be nearly as compelling. It's the stuff off the island that gives layers to what you're seeing in present tense, by knowing who they were before they got to the setting.
One of the things I like about setting is when the world... Like, I think there's an extreme, like Lord of the Rings and stuff. I mean, the setting, that guy did it probably better than anybody, but I think some people think it's a bit too much. And I don't know. I might agree. I'm not sure. But I think, to me, setting is ideal when you give a flavor for the world, and there's, like, hints that this is a living, breathing world without your characters. There's hints of other stuff. And like video games is one of the areas that this is done really well. Like a game like BioShock or Skyrim, there's like all these hints of other things going on. And like you almost you want to follow the threads and see, oh, what's going on over there. I think if you can do that in a movie or book where you create a world where it invites you to dive deeper into it, to learn the mysteries of the world beyond just the characters, or even think about it. Or fan fiction is really good with that. Like they have people that are fans of books. They like the core characters and stuff, but there's a rich mythology there to explore, and that's what they do. They get into it more. Like they imagine how other characters might be in this world. And I think if you create something like that, that's great.
Yeah, an indie book that does setting really, really well is Hugh Howey's Wool, right? Like it takes place in that silo. There's nowhere else it could take place. That's what made the story. The setting was such an important character to that overall narrative. And like Dave said, there was so much hinted at as far as the things that weren't said, the mysteries. Like it made you very curious. And setting.
And he opened it up to Kindle World, so now a bunch of people are writing in the world and adding their own stuff.
Right. Setting done well should make you curious. It should hint about a lot of stuff that you don't see. The beam, there's a lot of curiosity there. The setting for the beam is essential to that story. It cannot be told without the setting.
Actually, the beam is an example that I was going to go into, because one of the things that we've talked about a few times on this is that when I started writing the beam, Sean had given me like what, a 10,000 word, I think, Word document detailing like a complex timeline, and I just read it and I was like getting overwhelmed. Like this is so much background information, but like 1% of it actually appears in the narrative. It's just stuff that we need to know for flavoring and so on. And I sorry, Dave is distracting me in the background there. Sort of famously, well, within the lore of SPP, was like, I don't know what, I'm not making it whiz bang enough. Like, it's not bright lights and flashing buttons enough. It's not chrome and glitz. It's about the people. And that's ultimately what we settled into for the beam, was that needed to be a setting, but it was a rich setting. I don't know, kind of going in circles. You know what else has a rich setting, though, is Unicorn Western. Dave,
yes, it does.
I'm surprised with your love of Unicorn Western and your getting all the way to the wedding scene in Unicorn Western, that
Best
you supported the idea of our new logo, which we do have a new logo.
Yes. Yes, we do have a winner.
Okay, that was really natural of me. I just segued right into that. Like,
not at all shoehorned in.
No.
Yeah, we ran the contest on 99designs.com.
Oh, holy shit, look at how that happened.
Well, because I wasn't going to do a logo, because I had rather turn it over to professional designers. So we got a lot of entries. I forget the number. It was like over 500, I believe, I said last week. And we ran a contest, a poll, to see what the listeners and readers thought of it, and a bunch of people voted, and there was actually a tie between the unicorn and the book one. They were tied at exactly the same rating, so we all chose unicorn because it's symbolic of our genesis as a trio.
Yeah, and I wonder if this were somebody's first listen to this show, if they were like, they just went into an ad read in the middle of and then they're talking about taints again. You think 99 Designs could design a logo for your setting, or could design a setting for your book? That's kind of complicated. I don't know if they could pull that off.
They actually, there's people that have used them to create world maps, so that's tying into setting right there.
Oh, I would like to do that, actually. That's cool.
Do you have anything to lose? Because I'm not doing it if I have anything to lose.
Yeah. No, you got nothing to lose. 99 Designs, it's super easy. You go to them if you want a book cover, you want website banners, logos, a world map, pretty much any creative thing that you want designed. They've got designers that will compete there. You give out your ideas, and you have a bunch of designers competing for it, and then you go to the second round. You pick the ones you like, you go to the second round, make some changes and stuff, and you get your readers involved to vote on it. And dozens of designers. I'm
still worried that I'm going to have something to lose.
Well, no, I just have a question.
Oh my God!
Is there anything that they won't design? Because I'm thinking about starting a show called Runway versus Taint, and I need a logo. Will they do that?
I don't know what their rules are, but I'm sure somebody will try that now.
Oh, well, let's end this train wreck. Start your custom design today. Oh, you were going to say more. Come on.
No, go ahead.
All design work. They work. Start your custom design today at 99designs.com/SPP and enjoy a free Power Pack upgrade valued at $99. And that will make your design contest stand out from the crowd. And then we'll bold your listing, highlight it with a prominent background, and feature and get more listings. And you get about 185% more. We almost got 500 entries for ours. So visit 99designs.com/SPP to get started. You know what we need to do is we need to hire some annoying asshole to interrupt us, because when I interrupt myself, it just feels really discordant.
I just read that iTunes review on the taint thing, and the person said they would give us another chance. I would like to say,
no.
please don't give us another chance if that turned you off. Yeah, and it's weird when I said that. I was worried that would be the first time somebody saw us. It's because I don't consider myself like the kind of jock, like talking about titties and it's just stupid shit that guys talk, but I'm not that. I think I'm a little wittier than that. And when we talk about taint, it's done in a wittier way.
We're higher class.
No,
Yeah, we're highbrow taint.
Okay, we totally should drop this and get back to the topic. But
No, we shouldn't.
No, but I do want to say
I'm just worried this topic's going to leave me with something to lose.
No, very genuinely, what offended me about that review and reviews like that is that I have no problem on a 1-star review, but it just kind of sucks that, we put out a couple hundred episodes and we really do put ourselves out there and we do provide a lot of value. And, 1 star basically says worthless, this has no value, there's nothing good about this. And that's unfortunate, and I clicked on what other reviews, the guys left, and they're all 5 stars. We're the only 1 star.
A lot of info marketing people he likes. And we're not that.
No. Well, now we're at least back on brand, because Dave's complaining about info marketers and Sean's talking about his feelings.
You hurt his feelings, you bastard.
All
No,
right,
I'm completely cool if somebody 1 stars it, doesn't like it, doesn't get it. You're not supposed to be liked by everyone.
No, you got to trim your tribe. I get it. It's just like it's not worth talking about. But anyway, setting. So,
but the example I was given about the beef was
did Dave digress? I think Dave is like 12.
wow.
I'm so juvenile. I giggle about body parts.
No. Where I was going with that was the idea that, and when I say with that, I mean 5 minutes ago with the beam discussion, was the idea that I think there's a fine line to walk where you ultimately all of our stories, and I don't know that I would say this is like a solid storytelling rule, although I just haven't thought about it, is I think, well, okay, I'll say this. I feel like all stories should ultimately be about the people. And the setting, it should be background, but at the same time, we're talking about the idea of having a strong setting. I guess it's the interplay of the people versus the setting gives them obstacles. It gives them things to deal with that are.
Yes, but okay, you just finished Axis, right? How important was the setting of Axis to the story that you told?
Well, right. So Axis, and that was actually sort of mentally on my list to mention. We can't say a whole lot about Axis without giving spoilers, but it does have sort of a what the hell, like Mindbender, David Lynch sort of a feel to it. And it's set on a small island town, and it couldn't be any other way. We actually debated back and forth a little bit on the name of the town is Erin. That's why it's called Axis of Erin. And Sean originally conceived it as an island, and then
no, you wisely changed it to an island.
You guys are ripping off white space.
That's my model. So Sean originally conceived it as an island, and because you did, and then you said
you're right.
You said no, that's too tropey. To have a mysterious island.
Yeah,
that's been done in various serials beginning with W and ending in E. I don't know. And so he changed it before I even saw it to a seaside town. And I got it, and I said, no, the geography here, like some of the things that occur in the novel with our protagonist, Eben, going to various places, necessitates a closed environment and necessitates a closed system where he can't just drive off on a road. And there are things I could have done that are kind of what the fuck and mind-bendery with driving down a road and having.
Yeah, but I like what you did so much better.
Right, it makes much more sense.
You could have said it in Florida. Everything is what the fuck here.
It's thematically consistent to have it on an island, and that was really, really important. And it wouldn't have worked just anywhere. I mean, the setting is that story in a very, very dominant way.
Right, and I think that, but you don't want it to overpower it. And I think that I really started to, for the first time, Threshold was mapped out a year ago, little more than a year ago. And it was, there was setting. I knew setting was important. It was the first time I ever used Scalpel, actually, was for Threshold. And I used it to map out the house because it's a really big manor, and it was really easy to get lost, where different rooms are, different floors. Dave's like, you got lost anyway, bitch. See the look on your face. You said it with your eyes, honey. So... I had to build out the house because I had to know. So, I would have the little house layout on my left while I was writing on my right. And but you know, that was the most detailed I'd ever been on a setting. And mapping out Axis, there was really a lot of location scouting is what I started to call it, just for that project. And we did a lot for the Dream Engine, and I'm doing a lot right now for a project I'm actually mapping out for Lexi's line. And setting is super, super important to this book. It all takes place in a shopping center, and the shopping center is important. And so I think that as time goes on, and as I'm spending more time in pre-production and building the beats out and location scouting, I'm getting more invested in setting, and I'm finding that it's more important because you never want it to overpower the characters or the narrative or any of that. But the stronger your setting, the stronger your story has the potential to be.
I have a cool setting story. Before I tell it, Dave, any comments worth weighing in on there for setting?
Yes. Stacy Buck says writing active setting series by Mary Buckman. It's a three-book series that everyone should check out. So that is writing active setting series by Mary Buckham. Stacy also said, "I love taint. Dave's beard is sexy. It actually reminds me of my taint."
I hope she's left an iTunes review to that.
Stacy's actually a guy.
Oh, I hope he has left
Yes.
a review to that effect.
You should leave a dueling review about taint being awesome.
All right. And
Wait,
one
Dave,
star
wait,
about me getting his gender.
What was the name? What was the name of the author again,
The
Dave?
name of the author is Mary Buckham. Buckham.
The story that I was going to tell about setting, or I guess I will tell, is we actually, there's only, I think, just one project. Yeah, just one that Sean and I couldn't make go. Like, we joke that we can make any project go, and any idea. Like, we can make something out of any idea.
No,
we
Decoy
did
Wallet's
make
in the
Decoy Wallet's
bag.
finished, and it's good. I don't know if Sean read it, but I really enjoyed it.
No, it's on my list for tomorrow. I'm just so excited.
So what it was when we were mapping out the LOL comedies, which now have their own imprint. Another thing we didn't want to listen to Dave on until Jacob said it again. We were originally going to do one called Better Off Undead, and the idea was that it would follow three assholes who have a podcast, like, because we have so much fun on that podcast that nobody should ever listen to. That we said, well, and there's some really good stories here. Like, there's some really funny stuff. And Sean gave me beats, and I thought they were really, really funny. And when I started writing it, it fell so flat because it was about three guys having a podcast, and I was like, well, what the fuck are they going to do? Like, they're sitting in front of their computers talking
So
to
the setting was a detriment to it, because there wasn't.
It did not go. It made it just not work. And then Sean has actually revamped that. This is actually trial number 3, and it was the working title is Redacted, which again features three assholes, and although I kind of think now that we're moving Better Off Undead that's an LOL property now, because what else is it, right? And so I'm kind of thinking, like, on brand, Sean suggested maybe we should go back to Better Off Undead, but regardless, now it has a setting. Now it's like, I mean, I don't know if you want to go into it at all, but it's not just three people sitting in front of their computer. Okay. Well, Greens too. I mean, if you think of the settings of the comedies,
Greens is a setting. Yeah,
that's what I meant, right? And that's really matters. It's in an organic, fancy grocery store in a neighborhood that went bad. Like, that's an intriguing setting. Space Shuttle's Dave's favorite, soon to be followed by Space Shuttle Season 2 Electric Boogaloo. No, I'm not kidding. That's the ultimate setting, like space with, aliens that definitely aren't copyrighted beings.
Adult video does not exist without its setting. Every episode takes place in the store, and sitcoms by nature are always about setting. Or not always about setting, but the setting is a character. Sit
in sitcom is situation comedy. So you need a situation, and that usually means a strong setting.
Mm-hmm.
A setting that provokes something from people. Like, what if this crazy thing? I mean, the example in Seinfeld was, like, you're rich and I'm your butler or something like. I don't remember George's sitcom that he proposed. Some stupid situation.
It's a show about nothing.
I think setting used well could also like working within limitations. If the settings have clear limitations on what your characters are able to do, I think that provides, like Orange is the New Black might be a good example.
Good example.
That in Oz on HBO back in the day, that took place in a prison, and everybody was confined to certain things, but there were certain rules that exist within the prison. So I could talk about Oz because I haven't seen Orange is the New Black, but there are certain rules that exist within the prison, and it makes for a completely different reality than anybody else would experience, because you're dealing with gangs and factions and people that would get back at you, and it's just a whole different reality and mindset that all of these characters are experiencing, and it makes for a claustrophobic, intense ride of a show. And I think setting done well can do that. It can really drive your story by forcing the characters in certain ways.
Yeah, you can also, a strong setting allows you to see it from different perspectives too. So I think a really good example is The Wire, right? The Wire has a great setting. It's Baltimore.
Yeah.
And it's the worst areas of Baltimore. And season 1, that show is remarkable for so many reasons.
The best show ever.
Yeah, if you ever want to see like really strong storytelling that gets it right on every level, character and just scope, it's just dialogue. It really is fantastic. But the way it starts out, the setting for the whole entire show is Baltimore, but they keep changing the angle of the prism that you get to experience it from. So the very first, it's all about the drug trade, basically, right? So the very first season is just on the streets, like you just see it totally street level. And then the camera just pulls back further and further and further as the seasons go on. Then you see it from the police's point of view, you see it from the education, you see it from the newspaper,
the politicians.
Yeah, you just see it from all these different angles, but the setting itself never changes. And the setting itself is so strong that it allows these other perspectives to really shine. And the storytelling, I think, is a huge benefit because of the setting.
Yeah, David Simon, he's the creator of Homicide: Life on the Streets, another great show, and The Wire, and a bunch of other stuff. He was a journalist for I believe, the Baltimore Sun. And it really is an indictment on all of these different things about the criminalization of drugs, how people are marginalized by poverty, how politicians are more concerned with their images rather than actually helping anybody, and the gridlock that goes on in the education system, and it really it's a perfect picture of America, really, but it's done with like a grace, really, and you become involved in all of these different characters, even characters that are competing with one another. You want to see them, do well. It's just amazingly done, and yeah, the setting on that is just fucking perfect.
Sean and I have one series.
Can you think of?
What's that?
No, what are you gonna say?
I was going to talk about a setting thing. Sean and I have one series that was originally called Chupacabra Outlaw, and that was a bad title. Like, whatever, okay. But we didn't have a setting in mind for that. It was just something about, it was like The Fugitive with Chupacabras, and it sounds like a total joke. And looking back, I'm like, okay, another place where Dave was right?
That's 3 for 3 in this show. Wow.
He's gonna start running them out any second.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day. There's just too much noise in your hatred of everything. And so, what changed that? Before the actual name, the change of the name, was that I went to Austin, where Sean, although you didn't live there at the time, I don't think, and we went to a barbecue joint in Lockhart, is the name of the town, which is just outside of Austin, called Smitty's. And this Smitty's is this like old school sort of barbecue joint. They have these enormous smokers and wood fires that are literally like, you could just, if you move too far to the right, while you're standing in line, you will, catch fire and die.
Another person died today at Smitty.
Right, like there's no. It must
It's
have been
the most
grandfathered-
dangerous place on earth.
I'd like to see their insurance policy.
It must have been grandfathered in before, like, codes,
Rules and
stuff.
regulations.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
So I mean, you're literally like if I had my kids there, I would be shoving them against the wall and keeping one hand on
Wyatt
them the whole
Earp
time.
would have been scared to go stand in line for meat in this place.
Maybe the fire pit's actually an entrance to hell that's just left open at all
It's
times.
possible. It is possible.
So you go up and you order meat. That's it, meat. And they give you your meat on a butcher paper, not even on a plate. Or maybe there's a paper
blood all
plate
over
under
it.
the-
No, there's no plates.
There's
There's
no-
no plates.
Okay.
It's
I would
just-
hate this place so much.
Oh,
we
it's
need
so
to take.
good.
We need to take Dave there.
I'm not going. I refuse.
All right. And it's you then they'll hand you some bread, and by bread I mean they have a stack of Wonder Bread that's open, and they just reach in and just grab you like
Fly,
whatever
bouncing around.
whatever their hand will accommodate of just regular plain old white bread. Slap it on top of the meat, and you go and you sit at picnic tables with toothless people. Like
It's funny because not one word of this is even exaggerated.
right. And they're just conducting their kitchen business. Like they came out and sliced this giant wheel of cheese like right next to us, to be quaint and cool, just because it's like they just needed the space. So what do they give a shit? Like the water is Dixie cups and a thermos, And so after we went to that place, Sean sends me the beats for Cursed, which again was still called Chupacabra Outlaw, and he said, okay, it's set at Smitty's, like and we of course became somewhere else. It's a fictionalized version of Smitty's, but having seen and been in that place flavored the entire rest of the series. Like as I was writing it, I was like, oh, this is like a Southwest feel. It's very, very dry. It's not just stark. It's like Old West desert stark. And just seeing those fires and seeing the way that the attitudes around that, the way that place was conducted, changed the nature of that story fundamentally. That even if we had taken it and called it Cursed, we'd have, and it's not like it all takes place there; it just begins there. If we'd have begun that somewhere else, it would be a totally, totally different series. It wouldn't have that dry, stark desert tone to it.
Yeah, it did have a bone dry feel, and I think that I always like to use shorthand, right? And using setting as a place that Johnny and I both have had firsthand experience with is just the best kind of shorthand, because I can riff a couple of lines and I know he can go for a bit of mileage on that. The way we're talking about doing Unicorn Apocalypse, setting will be a huge, probably more than any project we've ever done, component to the story. And I'm excited about that. I'm more interested in setting, I think, than I've ever been. And project to project, that seems to grow.
Well, I don't know when you're going to be done with the Scrivener for Beats video series. Is that kind of coming up?
Yeah, I'm starting that next week, actually.
Okay, so one of the things, and I was writing about this in the Fiction Unboxed book today, is Sean, and I don't know how this works on the Collective Inkwell side. I think Dave does most of the beating, probably literally. So I don't know if this occurs, but at least on the Realm and Sand side, anything that Sean and I write together, the beats he's given me have evolved from in Write, Publish, Repeat. I called them Cliff's Notes written in advance by somebody who wasn't paying much attention, and that's what it sounds like. A few paragraphs of text, like Chapter 1, these rough things happen. Chapter 2, and what they've evolved into is a complete experience. Like he location scouts as part of it. He casts our cast, says this actor would play this person, this actor would play this person, gives a full bio, but then there's always a section for locations. And the Dream Engine, Axis used it too, but the Dream Engine was a little more interesting because it wasn't all in one place. It wasn't like, here's this old abandoned carnival at this island and here's another place at this island. It was like, here's different cities. And he went online and got visuals from here's the convenience machine in the Dover district part of town, and here's what Stensway looks like, and it really it set the mood for me. And if I'm people talk about getting in the mood to write, for me setting gets me in that mood in a shorthand way.
We talked about setting this whole time, and we yet to mention Stephen King and Castle Rock, his fictional place in Maine.
Right, right. No, I love Castle Rock. I think Stephen King does setting very, very well. Derry, for it. is very much a character. Stephen King, the territories in Talisman, very much a character, right? And I think that
Love that.
like I long for that. Like I want character to be a story. I do. Dave and I have our own. Las Orillas is the name of the city that we revisited that quite a few times in our stories. And actually, this is funny because I was talking about the story that I'm mapping out for Lexi right now. And right now, as the beats stand, it's set in Las Orillas, and I'm not sure about that.
You said decoy wallet in Las Orillas, and there's a note in there where I said, "This is kind of a Confederacy of Dunces sort of a tale. Do you want me fucking with Las Orillas?" So you may end up changing that, and so I thought of that.
Well, I'll look, I'll see. But as I was mapping out, Lexi's story, it's basically very loosely Fashion Island in Newport Beach, which is a very fancy outdoor mall, and it really felt like that was the setting that I wanted to do. But I also have Penny to a Million is set in the same city. So there was something that just felt weird about making a title that's clearly adult in the same city, but maybe that doesn't matter. I don't know. But I like that. I like
in the
that.
outskirts of Inferno Falls.
I like that. I like that whole thread. I like that a lot. I like that Stephen King is, and funny too with Stephen King, his Castle Rock does not have consistency. Have you ever noticed that? He contradicts himself.
I don't remember enough to.
like give me an example. A business that's on the main street that suddenly isn't there or something.
Yeah, no, it's like I can't think of a good example. But as I was reading growing up, I pretty much for my childhood read everything that King had written up until a point when I just stopped reading as frequently. And I used to notice Castle Rock contradictions, but the name was always the same.
Another writer that setting plays a big part in his stuff is Carl Hyson, who worked for the Miami Herald and humor satire writer, everything Florida, and he nails Florida pretty damn good too. So
yeah, I read one of those, and with the alligators and yeah. One of the things.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
Well, I was just
gonna say, I think there's a bit of a lag. I was just going to say that we've got a few fictional towns in Collective Inkwell. And I like I like writing like the fictional towns because I don't like placing it, especially in a place I've never been. I like kind of more getting a feel and creating my own thing.
What I was going to say about King is I think it's in Tommyknockers. So I think he does setting really, really, really well, especially when it's time-linked theme. So when he sets a lot of stuff in the 50s in New England or specifically Maine, like Bangor or something, and those are really fantastic. But one of the places where I have a gripe is I think it's in Tommyknockers, where he has this section called The Town, and it goes on and on about Haven, which is where the story takes place, and that I thought was a bit much. So it's like the setting.
Oh, this is like 1,000 page
Remember
long. I know what you mean, yeah.
So you can go on and on about that. I don't know. There was something else I was going to say. I don't remember.
Well, I think you don't want setting to become like the main character, right? You want it to be a strong supporting role. You don't want it to overshadow your narrative, your plot, your theme, or your characters. But if it plays, a nice game of ball with all of them, I think you can have a much stronger story.
You do have to play within the rules when you work with a real place, though. So I know one of the things that Dave has said Sean doesn't do well, or I don't know if this is accurate or Dave's just complaining, is that Sean will have somebody going to some other place, and he got there in 2 hours despite it being 1,000 miles away.
No, I always use Google Maps.
You didn't this time.
Well,
what time?
It was a scene in Yesterday's Gone. We're not going to get into it.
I did that with the Beam Season 2 and Fat Vampire 5, I don't remember, where I was getting actual distances on a map. And you have to make sure that those are consistent. Like if you're going from Paris to Amsterdam on a TGV, you need to make sure that there's a TGV route there and that they take off. I remember there was one section where I had to get the vampires from one place to another, and I was looking up train schedules and transit times because they can't be out after sunlight, and or like east-west overseas flights in going in one direction, going east, they had to be in the cargo hold because the way the sun rises, you wouldn't be able to make it before the sun came up. And so you do need to play within some of those rules, I think, if you choose a real setting. So, well, anyway, I could go on and on about that.
We do have some comments. Chrissy Moss said, "Is it literally called Space Shuttle to Electric Boogaloo?" No, I'm not kidding, because that would be awesome.
Yeah, because
I think she wants to know if it has the "No, I'm not kidding" part in the title. Is that what she's asking?
I don't know. That would be fun.
Oh no, that would be kind of funny.
I want credit for that name too. Thank you.
We'll credit you.
We have the dedication to Unicorn Western does include, I think, 2 thanks to Dave. So.
Thanks to Dave, who will never read this.
Yes, but Chrissy, it actually is called Electric Boogaloo, and because we were leaning into that, we had to describe or explain the Electric Boogaloo, and it's so awesome. It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
We got some more comments. Stacy Buck says, "Johnny is one sexy bitch. I'd make him the #1 hoe in my stable."
Oh. Who said that?
Stacy Buck.
It's a guy.
Oh, okay. I took that the wrong way until I realized the callback there.
Matt Heron said David Simon is king of setting. He also did Treme, set in post-Katrina New Orleans. In the setting in that show is very strong, as well as the same sense of telescoping lenses that you mentioned The Wire has. And Matt Heron also said, "Oh, I've been to Smitty's. That place has so much character. I think you could write a whole series set in barbecue places, set in various places in America. Lockhart, Kansas City, somewhere in the Carolinas." So you got your barbecue series coming up.
I'd write that.
You would write almost anything.
Yeah, I totally would.
All right, it's been an hour.
Awesome.
Is that it of on the comments then? So.
Yeah, that I'll just refresh one last time. But yeah, we gotta get to Better Off Undead.
Are we really doing Tate versus Runway?
No, we're not doing that. You we're gonna get bad iTunes reviews. Do you do you know what? I'm just off the top of my head. Have you ever had anything transcribed? Though?
I have never had anything transcribed because I've never said anything worth transcribing, and if I did, I wouldn't even know who to call.
Well, you know who you could call is Caption Access at captionaccess.com. Yeah, tell them that we sent you, and they'll give you a third off. They'll transcribe podcasts, live events. They do captioning. You know, I wonder.
They give you a power pack upgrade.
They will not.
Bastards.
If you go to captionaccess.com/SPP, you will find nothing.
Say the keyword taint, and you'll get a discount.
Say the keyword taint. I do wonder how they're coming on their task to transcribe the podcast, the entire thing, all 121 episodes to date.
We have 15 in the bank.
Transcriber has killed himself.
Right. So that's that. So I guess don't tune into Better Off Undead. That's the call to action for today's show. Any final words? No final words?
Taint.
All right. So,
taint ain't a word.
Taint ain't a word. That's been the self-publishing
episode title.
What is wrong?
Thanks for tuning into the Self-Publishing Podcast. If you'd like to get our best advice without all of the off-topic bullshit, be sure to pick up our book, Write, Publish, Repeat, The No Luck Required to Self-Publishing Success at selfpublishingpodcast.com/WPR. And if you've ever wanted to see how a novel really gets written from start to finish, you can watch Sean and I write one from scratch with nothing held back at fictionunboxed.com. So thanks so much for listening, and we will see you all next week.
Taint!
Peace out.